here. Okay, I'm recording. So let's make a formal introduction for our listener. Good afternoon for you, Adrian. Good morning for me.
Yeah.
My name is Claudio. I'm calling you from Washington, D.C. For the studios in Fairfax City, we're very humble and grateful that Adrian Beasly accepted our invitation to our show. Adrian, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Claudia, and thank you for inviting me.
No problem. Feel free to, for people that don't know your work and the work that you have done with Airsculpture, to introduce yourself, where you're from, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So I guess so. Music for me started when I was at school. Electronic music started when I was at school, and a friend of mine introduced me to electronics, and we used to mess about making little things with. In those days, we wouldn't have printed circuit boards. We'd have like a bit of wood and some nails, and you bash some nails into a bit of wood, and then you'd wire up the components. Because in those days, components used to have wires. These days, it's all on boards. And we made something one day which was called the Burt box, and it was essentially a box with I think it had like 6 controls, and you could control the frequency and the level of 3 separate oscillators, and they would modulate each other. And this was like a kind of FM/AM modulation thing. And it was amazing. And you could make these really crazy sounds with it. And I was just completely taken in by it. And I was at the time, really interested in things like Doctor Who and, electronic music sounds were really interesting. So to have a little box that you could make these weird and, kind of crazy sounds was fantastic. And that was it. I was completely hooked in electronic music at that time, mostly because of the sound. It wasn't about the music part. It was just the ability to create really unworldly sounds. And so that was it. I started to do more electronics. I built the next 2 synthesizers after that, bigger and bigger and more complicated. And then eventually I managed to have enough money to actually buy something rather than have to build it. So it started that way, and it was all driven from the sound has been the most important thing. I started to make interesting work with it. I used to record cassette tapes back then of, even when I was building my biggest synthesizer, as I would get one bit of it working, I'd record like an hour or, 2 sides of a scene, 45 minutes on a cassette, which would just be like an oscillator and nothing else, which is crazy. I wish I could find those tapes again, because at the time they were fascinating to me. And then the music started to appear. So I went to university, and I bumped into some other musicians and got in a band or 2. And then it started to be applied more to music rather than it just be pure sound. So I had some fun at university, and that's where I met John and Pete from Airsculpture. So at that time, Pete had a guitar, John had nothing. And that's how it remained pretty much during our university time. And then when they left and got a job, they had some money. They started to buy some gear. So we, John and I, first of all, got together and had a bit of a mess about with all of our gear, and decided it was quite fun. So we decided to sort of take it further. So and then Pete bought some gear as well, and he joined in pretty early on. I think it was like 2nd or 3rd session. Pete was on board as well. So, and we were just doing it for fun. No other purpose, no intention of playing in front of anybody else, no band ideas, it was just literally just for the fun of it. And at that time, the electronic music scene was pretty stale, actually. There was the only thing in the UK that you could go and see would be concerts put on by like the likes of Emma up in Sheffield and so on. And I secretly recorded one of our sessions and sent it to the Emma team. I didn't tell John and Pete, and they came back, really positive and said, "Oh wow, you got to come and you got to record a CD and all this other stuff." So we did that. We recorded a CD. When I look back at it, it's really crazy. So we booked a local studio, 24-track studio. We went in, set our gear up, and recorded an album. An hour's worth of music. That was it, done. We went back and mixed it a little bit, but all the recording was done in one session, and that was the first album for us. And that we took to the Emma Festival, and on the same billing was RMI for the first time as well. So the pair of us got to meet each other, and we sort of went from there.
And the rest is history. So let's go back to the beginning. So how is this with the COVID-19 and the virus affecting everybody in the world? How is this affecting your life, your music, your creativity? You cannot tour, you cannot go out that much. How is this affecting you?
Yeah, I mean, it has definitely affected different people in different ways. For me, what's happened to me is my my day job, if you like, I have well, I used to have a proper job, but these days I do photography as a living. Yeah. And my business was probably half online and half face-to-face training people to edit and their images. So using Photoshop and Lightroom and things like that. When COVID hit, obviously, you know, my diary, like everyone else, my diary is completely wiped out. All my workshops that I was planning to do were wiped out. And I thought I was very slow to the idea of doing group training online using Zoom, but it seems like I was probably one of the first, actually. So I put all of my classroom workshops online and started from there. And April and May, I think I worked every single day, bank holidays, everything. In fact, the whole of last year, I worked every single bank holiday, except for Christmas Day. That was the only bank holiday I didn't work. And it was just crazy. It went completely bananas. So unfortunately for me, in that case, I had pretty much no time for anything else. I'd had no time for photography. I had no time for music. But there was one thing that I did try to do and try to maintain, which was in our local village where we live, there's a pub. And I'd been taking a modular synthesizer down to the pub once a week. Well, not once a week, but every week they did this thing called an open mic session where people could just turn up and plug in their guitar and play something. You get one track or two tracks and that's it, and you're off. And I built a synthesizer in a box specifically to be able to take it to the pub, plug it in, you know, no computers, no other connections, just a simple power plug and a jack plug for the amplifier. So I could put it in, plug it in, do something, unplug it and go away again. And that went down really well. People really liked it because it's so different. It was so completely different to anything else people were used to. So I did that. And then COVID arrived, the open mic nights were gone, but some wonderful person decided to continue them on Zoom. So since then, every Monday night, and has been since for the whole of, well, what will soon be a year, they've been running the open mic nights, and I've been for probably close to 40 of those sessions. And in those sessions, I've got the benefit of having all my home gear, so I can use all of my gear rather than just one box. Yeah. But it's really good because it makes you think creatively for a section of maybe 5 or 8 minutes, I think I get. And I generally don't do too much ahead of it. So I'll do maybe the night before, I'll sort of set something up and then play that. And then it comes back round and you get a second go. And the second go is always a surprise because I've never prepared anything for the second go. So it's twist some knobs, change the tempo, do a few things, and then see what happens. And quite often it's those second ones that turn into the really interesting.
And do you guys charge anything? I mean, you need to pay like a fee, or it was free?
This is our local pub. So the people that attend it are the people that used to go to the local pub. It's really interesting, but we're starting to have a few people realize that it's on and they're coming. We've had a guy from Boston. We've had people from around the country in the UK that just turn up and, you know, have a guitar or something like that, or sing or do something. Some people tell poetry. We've got a couple of people that are across the water in Swansea, so 2 lovely people who come and do some poetry for us. And so it could be open to anybody, really.
And then you guys upload the recorded to, is there in YouTube where the host?
Well, it's been mostly just been live, so it's mostly been not recorded, but actually it's starting to be recorded now. So it turns up on a Facebook page for one of the guy that organizes it has been bringing that up. So, you know, for me musically, that's pretty much all I've had. And then since Christmas, because I had to clear all the gear out of the lounge to make room for Christmas, I've literally only just been putting it back together again. So I haven't done anything since then. But John, Pete and I and Airsculpture, the COVID has certainly knocked us back. We would have been in the US. We would have been playing concert at Chuck Van Zaal's place in October. That we were supposed to be there playing the October festival. But obviously we couldn't do that. So we did put together an hour's piece for him, especially for that. And we're going to be releasing that actually. So where we separately recorded and pulled it together as a single piece. But because of the way we work, we very much work by spontaneity. So it's not our normal way of working. So it's not been great. But in lockdown, I mean, Pete has released an album in lockdown, and John has got some things together as well. I think he's had 2 things he's put together. I'm the slacker in this one.
Were you born like in a music family? Your dad, your mom's brothers used to play instrument? Was music important at home? Or?
Yeah, my dad used to be a drummer. He played in some bands where I used to live in Southend, over on the east of the country. He used to play drums in some local bands. But and yeah, I think music has always been something. And my stepfather plays piano really well. He's always been a good pianist. So we kind of had a piano kicking around, but it was one of those weird things where I was very self-conscious at home and when I was young, and I couldn't play with other people. So I did piano lessons for a while, but as soon as I could give them up, I gave them up. And then when the electronic music sort of took off for me, I sort of returned to music then, but not kind of in a formal sense. But yeah, it's so it's mostly self-taught for the last 20 years, 25 years.
Wow. Do you remember the first vinyl record that you bought on your own, or what bands were you listening to at the
Oh
time?
yeah, that was interesting. So that would have been at school. I think at that time there was a couple of weird things going on. There was punk rock had started. We had stuff like Jean-Michel Jarre,
Yeah.
and we had Mike Oldfield. And I think, you know, that all happened all at the same time, really, pretty much. And oh, and Gary Newman, you know, turned up on the scene as well. So we had the most amazing pop charts at those times, where you'd have, you know, punk on one hand and you got Gary Newman on the other, and you'd have some weird, strange, crazy, you know, stuff going on in the middle. It was really varied and interesting. So at that time, I think probably Mike Oldfield sort of picked up on some stuff, and then fairly quickly, I think I found Jean-Michel Jarre. And then I was at college and somebody came in whilst I was playing a Jean-Michel Jarre album. He said, oh, if you like Jean-Michel Jarre, you need to listen to Tangerine Dream. I had no idea who they were. So I just went down to the local record store and found what I assumed was the record that they had made. It was only one at the time. I think it was Phaedra.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I bought that and I thought, not sure about this, but I'll buy another one. So I bought Encore. And, you know, Phaedra and Encore, I mean, goodness. By the time I'd listened to that a couple of times, that was it. I was completely hooked by that then. And then it just went bye.
And then Rubicon, I think I came after that, and all the early
Yeah.
stuff from Tangerine Dream was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Nowadays, well, now
Mm.
some of them passed away, but I don't know,
Yeah.
the last 20 years, the quality is not there. They're a machine, they're producing stuff. We don't, you know.
Oh, it's amazing. And I think TD, you know, did for me, it had the right combination of things. It had some musical, some musical elements. It, you know, became much more musical towards the sort of mid to late 70s. But it still had that experimental edge, and it had the sounds, and it was interesting, and the repetition and all of that sort of, those are the ingredients I really enjoyed in their music. I mean, I guess they did the stuff that I really like, they did for probably only 5 or 6 years, really, looking back. And as Airsculpture, we've been doing it for 25 years. You know, that
And
section.
then after that, I imagine you use cover, I don't know, Klaus Schulze and Peter
Yeah.
Baumann and all this big name people.
Oh yeah. Well, I was a big fan of Peter Baumann, actually. The other two guys, I'm not so sure. They picked up on Schulze a lot more. I kind of have a love-hate Schulze relationship, but there's
Really?
some stuff I really like. And well, don't hate, but I find myself going to his music less often. There's something, you know, I don't dislike it by any means. It's just, it doesn't, in a way, TD had a stronger pull for me. So I would listen to that much more readily.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think I heard from the other people that I have interviewed that Klaus Schulze, well, Peter Baumann lives here in the United States. I'm trying to get a hold of him so I can definitely do it. And then Peter and Klaus Schulze, he's not in very good shape, and he's kind of sick, and you know, be hard to get a hold of him and interview him because he has closed himself out of the world in many ways. I mean, you need to, you know, respect that kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah, we did bump into him once. We went to see him play at Coventry Cathedral, and we were at university at the time. We were in Hull University, so it was a trip across, and we came across. So me, Pete, John were together then, even though Airsculpture hadn't formed at that time. And we watched him play, and it was amazing because there was thunder and lightning going on outside. And towards the end of the set, they were listening to the thunder claps and playing, you know, to try and sort of pick up off of that, which was fantastic. And then at the end of the gig, he disappeared, and we think, well, wonder where he went. And we realized there was kind of catacombs underneath. So we bravely wandered down these catacombs, and there he was having a burger and a bottle of whiskey. and chatted and posed for photos with us. And so we
Wow.
we were amazed. It was fantastic. I still have that picture today with the three of us together, and Klaus with us. It was,
when was that? Do you remember?
I think that was 76. I can't remember.
Roughly, that's what it got to be.
But it was, when he played, no, sorry, 86, somewhere around there. But it was, the Coventry Cathedral gig was, quite an amazing experience.
And then, so you after high school, that we were in high school here, you went to college and met John and Pete. And at the time, you guys began doing it as a hobby, right? For fun. They all like electronic music, right? You never would have anticipated that you guys will end up, releasing records and touring. And
absolutely. It was amazing. So we did it just for fun. We because it wasn't, people didn't want to listen. We thought people didn't want to listen to this kind of music because everything was so different at the time. And then when Emma picked up on it, and we did this first album, the first CD, that sold out pretty early on. That was really amazed us. And all of a sudden, I think because that was at a time when you couldn't record CDs at home, there was no equipment to do that. It was before the sort of CDR revolution that came a few years after that. So we were very fortunate to be picked up by Dave Law, and we had the opportunity to record, and he distributed some albums for us, 4 or 5 albums, I think, in the end. And that got us to a very niche following, but a niche following across the world, even at that time. And it was fabulous. We went and played in all over the place. We played in all over Europe. We played in the US. And got hooked up with something else called the Ricochet Gathering, which Vic did. So we got to meet other musicians who had a similar mindset, and traveled and played a lot. So touring Europe was amazing. We went all over. It was fantastic.
And then at the time you guys were making money. That was you were making a living out of music, right?
It was basically, it would pay for itself. So, the costs of traveling and so on, and the fee that we might get would pay for our fun and beer and transport and all that. So we never saw it as it was never a business. It was never a way of living. It was purely hobby and purely fun. But that was what made it great, because we could just enjoy ourselves. We didn't have to make a living to survive. It was just for fun.
And then when you guys were, coming back from a particular gig or tour in Europe, 2 months, 3 months, whatever it was, you went back to your normal job, right? The day job.
That was, in fact, it was funny. I remember somebody I was working with who said to me, because at that time I was, I might have been R&D director at that time. And she said to me, how on earth can you do these things as well as, the role I was doing at that time was incredibly stressful. It was really hard work, and was the reason why I had to get out of it, because it was, many of the people that I knew were suffering, heart attacks and strokes and all sorts of things from stresses related to the job. And, I knew that would come for me at some point. But at that same time, we were doing gigs and releasing albums, and I was doing photography as well at the same time. So it was a bit crazy, really. But I had to have those outlets. I think what happens is when you work hard, you have to have some other way to compensate. So as they say you work hard, you play hard. I never really understood that, but actually it just has to happen, because if you don't have that balance, you would be sucked into this horrible vortex of stress.
Like for me, right? My outlet music is this, talking to people, and I'm a computer engineer. I don't do this for a living, right? I work for other
what sort of engineer?
Huh?
What sort of engineer?
Computer science.
Oh, computer science engineer. Okay, yeah, excellent.
I'm doing a lot of cloud stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty popular right now.
Yeah, it's very popular. So I'm doing all right. So that's helped me out. That pays the bills and everything. I do this because I like it.
Good. Yeah.
Because I have a lot of music. I will keep on buying music. And I begin talking to people like yourself. So I do it for fun. So I could play computer for that long, right? But then I need to do other things. Otherwise, I get crazy like yours. Brilliant. Why the name Airsculpture came from? What's the weird combination?
Well, it's a term that's been borrowed from Frank Zappa. So John is the names person in our band. So whenever we're trying to think of a name of a track or something, usually Pete and I are rubbish at it. John always goes, well, what about this? And both Pete and I will go, oh, no, that's crap. But we could never come up with anything else.
So it's better than nothing, right?
Yeah. John suggested Airsculpture because Airsculpture is the term that Frank Zappa used to call his guitar meanderings by. And well, you know, in a way that was very appropriate for what we were doing. And, you know, if it name checks Frank Zappa, well, that's great. You know, we were big fans of his anyway. So yeah, it was sort of borrowed from that, but and it's just stuck. At the time, I remember thinking, oh God, no, it's awful. But actually, it's a very appropriate name for us.
And then what were the best year for you guys? How many gigs were you guys doing a year? Like 40, 50?
Well, yeah, in the early days, we probably did, 3 to 5, 5 to 6, maybe in the early days. But you've got to remember that it was just for fun for us. So we weren't ever trying to do it as to earn money or to tick off, achievements or anything. But yeah, in the early days, we did travel to places like Holland, and that was fantastic. You know, we did concerts on the continent, and we would travel out there, you know, on a fairly regular basis. So yeah, going around the various electronic music gigs, which were more, there were more of those things going on back in the sort of early days. Well, the 2000s, you know, around that time, I think we did several. Then in the UK, we had a couple of things, the Hampshire Jam, that went on for quite a few series. We played that, many of those. And then we started to head out across the pond. So we went out to the US, and Chuck invited us out. I think John and Pete had gone to a Ricochet gathering before that down in the south, in Orlando. I think it was down that way. But we went as a band to play at the gatherings at Chuck's, and we went there 5 times. About, you know, every few years we would go over, and again we would have been for our 6th time last year, but sadly locked down.
Yeah, the gathering series is very famous. It's a lot of very good musicians there.
It is, and you know, it's been going for 30 years next year. So the plan is that we're hopefully, as a band, we'll go there next year and be part of the 30-year celebrations with Chuck, which would be fantastic.
How many CDs have you guys put together as a band, not as yourself?
Wow, yeah, good question. I think we're into the 15, and we're probably on about 5, or you know, could even be 10 compilation albums of various sorts. So I mean, the best resource for, you know, as a quick update for us is airsculpture.com. That gives you a really quick summary of what we've done as in terms of both the CD releases and the concerts and gigs that we've done. So yeah, and that it happened. Some of those happened quite quickly, but I remember the first one, I say, was we visit the studio, you record the album, done. You know, it's daft. And then the second one came out of a series of rehearsals that we had done. It was really interesting. It was much, they were perhaps a little bit more concise. They were more focused. The tracks were quite different. So that was quite nice. And then we basically, after that, I think pretty much after that, they become recordings of our concerts, because everything we do is live. Then, you know, almost in front of an audience is no different from being in a studio, because we're not going to do it again. That's it. That you get, that's the one-off. But being in front of an audience sets up a pressure. You know, it sets up it heightens the whole situation.
Of course.
So, yes. I mean, the other 2 guys are relatively laid back, but I always, of the 3 of us, I always suffered massively with stage fright. You know, the nerves going on, and so I'd be absolutely bricking it. The other 2 guys would be fairly chilled out, and we go on, and I think, shit, you know, we've got to play something. The first thing we play sets wherever we head to. And so somebody has to do something. So somebody does something. And so as soon as somebody does something, we're off. And then kind of the nerves kind of, you know, drop away somewhat, and the music takes over. And it's when it works well, it's the most amazing experience, you know, to be part of that.
And I imagine that every recording that you guys do is different, but which percentage is improvisation, real improvisation, and the others planned? Like 50-50 or?
Oh God, no. It's so typically what happens is we have, what I would say is that we don't have sequences and things or drum patterns and things recorded as such, but what we do have is we have things that we play. So instruments that are very playable. So sequencers that are very playable, hands-on.
Yeah.
So, for example, I mean, a really good example would be the beginning of the concert in Holland. I was just thinking which one it was. I think it might have been the let's see, which one was it? So we did. Oh yeah, we did Jodrell Bank 3 times. We played at Jodrell Bank before anyone else had done that. That was amazing. And then a couple of other of the planetariums as well elsewhere in the UK. I was thinking of Nijmegen. It could be. I can't remember which one it was now, but we had this crazy idea right at the beginning, which was we all had something called a Nord modular, which is a little red keyboard, and we just sort of said just before the concert, we said, well, why don't we just pick these 3 instruments up, one each, and just go and walk right to the front of the stage and sit on the front of the stage with them on our laps and just do the first part of the gig like that with nothing else. And I thought, wow, that's a really interesting idea. So I'd worked out a patch that I could use where I could have 3 layered sequences running of no more than, I couldn't do more than about 6 notes or something because of the number of knobs that you had on the, so I couldn't control more than 6 notes. So I think there were 2 notes for an 8-note sequence. I couldn't control those 2. They were just whatever they were. And then I could move between the layers, play and change the notes. And then I could change whether the note played or not by playing with various knobs or keys. So I had the role of sequencer, and John and Pete had the role of, atmospheres and strings and so on. And that is probably one of the most amazing things we've ever done. I think it just went, and we could never repeat it. I'm pretty sure of that. But so none of that was ever played before. We never ever played any of it before. The sequencer I had been playing around with in order to get it to work, but I'd never played the sequence that we ended up with. It was just, just happened. It was the result of the chemistry and the result of the day. It was amazing. And then, so typically what happens is we have things we can work with rather than pieces that are prepared. So there's nothing really prepared. And then what happens is when we start, if somebody starts with something, we'll go, oh, well, I could put this with it, or I could put that with it. And because we've not really rehearsed anything, then it's new. So the way that comes out, what happens is, let's say somebody happens to be doing a sequence, all of a sudden they'll hear a bass line or a drum pattern, they go, well, where did that come from? It's not me. I don't think that's me. And so that causes a lead line to kind of naturally come out of that, or some chord patterns or something. So the way that it comes together is it evolves out of stuff. So it's almost like some kind of recipe where you have some ingredients, and you have but you pull them together and you make it on the day, and that's how we work. So yeah, there's really very little in terms of preparation. I mean, to be honest, we're not good enough to do the same thing twice. So we just couldn't. I don't think we did try it once. I remember one time I said, look, why don't we have this chord sequence, and I'll play this chord sequence, and then you could do blah blah blah. We tried it once and it just didn't work. So right, forget that. We're not good enough to do that. We don't get together enough to rehearse to do that. So we have to improvise.
But then after, I don't know, if the set is 2 hours, right? Yeah. Maybe you guys take a break after an hour and then do an hour and a half straight. How do you know when to stop? I mean,
right. Well, I do remember.
You playing the stuff, John is playing the stuff, Peter, and then eventually need to die down, right? I mean,
well, usually there are more practical drivers. You have to finish by then because we have to pack up and we have to go to there and then blah blah blah. So it's usually constrained. It's never usually free flowing. If it had been free flowing, things would just naturally come to a conclusion. So very often we can hear a moment. We go, that's a finishing chord. That's a sound that sounds like it's come to a conclusion. And then we look at each other and somebody will go like that, desperately trying to get the attention of someone else to say, stop. Yeah. And we try to communicate that way. That usually works. But I have to say there was one really brilliant session that we did at Chuck's on the air afterwards. So we would go on to Star's End after playing the gig at the gatherings. And they are 1 hour slots. And so Chuck will say to us, right, you're going to start playing and you cannot stop until we get to the next hour marker, and you have to keep playing. So we would go up there, we'd set all our gear up, we'd do the first hour, that's fine, and then he'd say, right, take a break for an hour. So we take a break for an hour, and then he'd say, do you want to play the next slot? And you have to say yes or no. Well, I remember this time John was pretty knackered. He was very tired, and Pete was very tired too. And I just said, "Yeah, why not?" And I came, "What? We're drained, physically drained, mentally drained." But so he switched us on, and that piece was really a lovely piece. In fact, I think it's called Graveyard Shift. I really loved that piece, and it came out of having been completely drained. We had nothing left because we'd done a concert. We dragged all our gear backwards up to the recording studio.
Yeah.
We'd done another cut. This was 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. They would. I think John went to sleep on his keyboard at one point. I think he was completely asleep. John and Pete and I kind of managed to soldier on, and then it finished. But actually, listening back, in a way, because we had nothing else left, what came out was completely different, and it was unique, and it was a lovely experience.
Absolutely. As far as old culture, all the stuff is on CD, on people on the website can buy the CD, can download the music. What about vinyl? Do you guys have any stuff on vinyl?
We are definitely, yeah, we're definitely going to do some vinyl. If nothing else, because it's a vanity project. Vinyl often, I think, is, you know, it probably costs too much for you to make much money back on it. But why wouldn't you want to have vinyl? So we've always wanted to do it, and there's just never been we've never managed to coalesce around some tracks that will go on it or whatever. But we've had a little bit of a battle within us getting to this point, but we are definitely going to do some vinyl. Otherwise it's CDs and downloads on Bandcamp, and Bandcamp's been brilliant, so you can get most of our stuff from there. Not everything, because some of it was initially released by Dave Law on his new Neu Harmony label. So there are, I think the first 4 or 5 albums are with him, but I guess we might be able to get hold of those at some point.
Yeah, well, sure. Doing vinyl, you know, it's small set of releases, I don't know, 200 copies or 300. It's more expensive, obviously, but assuming that the COVID will go away and you guys will do the tour, you can make the money back in a couple of shows. People at the end like to, you know, take a picture with you guys, you know, sign it, and then get sell merchandise and stuff like that. People like this stuff.
Well, yeah, I think we would love to do that. So I think vinyl is in our future. I'm sure we will do some vinyl.
I got you. All right, let's go back to your stuff now. So last night, as was mentioned, I think you did have 5, if I remember correctly, and I listened to all your stuff. And now when I bring to your attention some particular composition, and feel free to elaborate. The first one is, I think it's called different blending. I think it's
different blending. Yes,
that's a beautiful piece, man. What can you tell me about the concept?
Oh, well, that was really interesting, actually, because I'm teaching photography. One of the modules that I created was to do with Photoshop's blending modes. And Photoshop has this ability to take 2 images and blend them together using special modes. And one of them is called difference. And the result you get from blending 2 images using the difference blending mode is really interesting. And I was experimenting with this as I was putting together the workshop. And I thought, oh, this is really interesting. Well, I wonder if I could do a piece of music to go along with it. So I recorded this piece of music using a little modular system that I put together especially to make sort of atmospheric sounds. So it doesn't really contain any melodic elements, but it contains all the kind of components that a little bit like a VCS3, sort of a you know, ring modulators and phasers, and it's got a joystick and all sorts of other things. So I started recording this, and I really liked it. So the people that came on the workshop, the Photoshop workshop, I sent them a code for it so they could download the music to go with the workshop. It was a bit of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I think is called SB1 also, so it's very nice too.
Yeah, so the Snowball is something that Martin Greenwood put together, these concerts, which were in the early part of the year. For us, we're over here in the UK, we quite often get snow around that time of year, so January, February time. And it was intended to be a gig where it would be solo musicians, but mostly featuring modular gear. So I went along to 2 of those and played 2 of those. So did John. And so I had something called my strawberry box, which was a converted wooden tray that used to hold strawberry punnets. So it was a wooden tray that they would sell strawberries from. And it was just a lovely size. And I thought, oh, it'd be really nice to put a synthesizer into that. So I actually built my modular system into it, took that along, and that became the main sort of the main forceful sequencer line running all the way through it. So there's a series there which are, I guess it's tending towards my natural way of working musically. So I like to layer things, and I like to have, quite strong sequencer lines within them. And there's this whole issue of, do you do chord changes or not? And within the Airsculpture group, it's always been pretty difficult to do chord changes, because when you're improvising like that, everybody's going, well, hang on, where's that going? So it becomes a little bit more tricky, and you have to naturally be a bit more constructed and organized if you're going to do chord changes. But actually, I've realized that I really like the strength that comes from the repetition that comes out of a continuous build and build and build. And it's not sort of a classical in nature, but it has something about it which I really like, and it does something for me. And I think, it's like with photography. If some of the best photography comes from focusing on the things that you enjoy, not what you think other people might enjoy. So if you take pictures and you're looking for likes, on Instagram or whatever, that isn't fathering, it's not pushing your own personal style. It's pandering to the masses. So musically, I think the same is the case, that if you effectively, it's self-indulgent, but actually that's okay. If it's not your job, if you're not trying to make a living out of it, why wouldn't you do what you love? Why wouldn't you build on and try to see where that goes? So in a way, that's what I've been doing with the layering and building layers and building layers and building layers. And it's not going to be for everyone, but that's fine, because it's for me. So yeah, so those albums are like that, but the Powerhouse album was different. Powerhouse.
Yeah, that's what the next one, the Powerhouse, I think is for 214. That was a very, I listened to the stuff a couple of times yesterday.
Yeah.
Since I'm working from the house, it's very, very nice stuff. Very, very different from the other stuff. But I like it. I like different things. So.
And that's much more melodic and harmonic, and has chord changes and various other things going on in it. And particularly the title track, Powerhouse itself. I would say, if anything, that kind of encapsulates me musically. It has the elements in it which I really love. It has a driving rhythm, it has driving sequences, it has leader lines and chordal work that's going on. It really is good. I haven't done so much of that recently, but I think that there's more of that to come, and that's what I would like to be able to do, is to stop zooming and start doing a bit more music, and maybe I can get back to more of the roots, if you like, of where I've come from.
Sure, and then, like you mentioned before, right? I think in Bandcamp, the company only take 10%, the other 90% go to the art, and there's some weeks during the year they will, you get 100%.
Yes,
which is very good. So you sell without, I don't need to know the number, but you sell stuff like every day or every other day, or
it surprises me. That's all I would say, because there's no advertising. I don't push it, I don't promote it. If I did push and promote it, it would probably sell more. But so it's always a nice surprise when you hear on your phone the little pling sound that happens when you've made a sale, and oh, that's nice. So it is. I haven't even gone and looked to see what the numbers are, but because it's much more fun to have just to have it happen every now and again, and you go, oh, that's nice. Oh,
as opposed to, I don't know, Spotify, right? That you need to be like a big time musician to get $1 out of Spotify. You need to have how many hits? I don't know the number,
but I guess Spotify has a different role for different people. If it's your business and you need to make money to survive, then it's a disaster. If you don't care about the money but you want exposure, then it might give you the exposure. So if you could see it maybe as a way of advertising. So again, if you're a musician and your future is creating new stuff all the time, then giving a certain chunk of that stuff, which is in the past, if you like, as a way of finding new markets, finding new people, it could work for you that way. But it's obviously not for anybody apart from the very few a living.
Right. So you can use Spotify to promote your music. You don't get any money of that. But then people that like the music can go to the Bandcamp and say, hey, I like this guy, I want to buy it. It's advertising, exposure.
I guess it's a channel.
There's a channel to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And if you have a look at what's on Bandcamp, and Bandcamp covers a lot of bands that are, are well known. They have a presence on Bandcamp because it's a way of it's their shop stall really, where they can actually make a little bit of money.
Yeah, that's what I do actually when I'm looking for soft rock music or jazz rock and electronic. I always listen. Spotify is my library for me to listen, because I will listen to Airsculpture library or hits, or if you like that, like in computer science, a machine learning algorithm that if you like that, very likely you will like that. So I listen to stuff and then go back to Bandcamp or whatever, Amazon, and buy the stuff. So
that's really good.
I can play on the radio. So it's a very great source of information, like going to a public library.
Yeah, so that's the way to think of it. And but it's of no way for very few people is it going to be a proper revenue stream,
unless you have a million hits or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You could be lucky.
Yeah, actually, I have interviewed a couple of people that have, I don't know, a million hits, which is good for them. Man.
Yeah.
And then in Bandcamp, I think there were 3 albums and 2 EPs. How many stuff you have done as Adrian yourself overall? Do you remember?
As albums?
Yeah, or CDs, or not just EP, but CDs.
For myself, I've only done half a dozen. So it's I did say before Airsculpture was born, I did cassette tapes and did sort of that on a regular basis. But that they've never come through to. People have suggested I put them on, bring them out through Bandcamp or something. But they're the early days when you're experimenting and they're not particularly they're not faultless. Let's put it that way. So I think for me, I need to focus more on finally getting another couple of albums properly solidly under my belt. The daft thing is that I think I could be doing things in my setup that I have, and I just don't record it. And I should record things more.
Why not? You should, man.
I just have the facility now. Literally just arrived. So there's a new bit of equipment called the Blue Box, which is done by 1010 Music. Has just come on the market, and it's a combined mixer and recorder. So it actually has. Essentially could be up as much as 12 tracks can be recorded individually as a live mixer and recorder, which means that gives you the opportunity to record meanderings that you might do and then go back and then edit slightly. You don't have to keep the whole lot. It's not just a stereo recording. So actually suddenly could transform the ability to do that. So my hope is that for the open mic sessions, which I'm going to rejoin again once my gear's back up and running, I'll be able to record them that way. And then because they're spontaneous live things, occasionally there'll be something that would ruin a stereo recording, but could be fixed in a multi-track.
And on average, how many hours you dedicate to your real job, the photography, other stuff, versus music? Do you try to do at least an hour of music every night, or?
I'm not so good with the music at the moment, but I think over last year with the open mics, so it would be a sort of maybe 2 or 3 hours a week. It's probably not much more than that. And as Airsculpture, we were terrible really, because the only time we ever played was when we got together. So we would we'd get together and we'd do what we call a rehearsal, but it wouldn't be a rehearsal. It would be more a plug everything in, see if it works still. And usually between the last session and the next session, we'll have bought some new gear or changed something out. So there's always something different going on. And the big thing with us was to try to have everything synchronized so that we would have the ability for somebody to sequence, somebody else to add to that sequence, and then add to, so that's a very powerful way to work with what we were doing. So we wouldn't do anything in between very much. And we would only so if we're doing a gig, we'd have a get together a couple of weeks before, maybe just to make sure everything's working. That would be it. Then we do the gig. So in a year, it's frightening. We wouldn't do very much, but it's made the things more spontaneous. It made the things, there's so much more exciting when you haven't done anything for a while that you're suddenly doing it and you really enjoy it. There's something about that. That's a really fabulous experience. And that causes the music to happen, I think.
I got you. What kind of music? But it's a little bit risky though, in a way. Well,
it's incredibly risky.
If you guys know each other well, it's going to turn out well. I will get nervous. I would need to rehearse.
We are nervous.
I won't
There is
interrupt you.
something, there's something about, you know, a paying audience. You know, they paid money to come and see you mess up, you know, oh my God.
Yeah.
So there is something, you can't just go, right, well, let's do the old, what's his name number, you know, go just do that to get the nerve settled. We haven't got anything like that. We just got to go, right, start.
Gotcha. What kind of music when you're doing the photography and workshop, and what kind of music you listen to?
Oh,
You put music in the background, or?
yeah. If I'm working on editing and things like that, then I would have music going on in the background, and that could be, you know, it could be quite a wide range. I like sort of quite heavy stuff like Nine Inch Nails. That's good stuff. Alessandro Cortini, who's you know, really quite industrial almost, his style.
I don't know her. What, Alexandra?
Alessandro Cortini. So he is he's one of the synth players out of Nine Inch Nails.
Oh, let me yeah, gotcha.
He's got a style which is bewitching. It's very crude in a way. It's not. It feels like it's not produced, but it is produced. It's very interesting. The one I'd recommend is Avanti. If you've not heard any of his, I think that's quite accessible. There's some of his others are. It's almost like it's one synthesizer, and I'm just going through playing some sounds and then switching. You almost hear the switches clicking. You know, it's so raw. The sound is very raw, but he has a lovely understanding of the music and the evolution of sound and the evolution of the patterns. And I think it's a really interesting discovery. He's a relatively new discovery for me. I mean, I knew that he was in Nine Inch Nails, but I guess I hadn't picked up any of his music. But that's been really good. So I'll listen to sort of kind of heavy electronic music versus light electronic music. Yeah, Tangerine Dream gets quite a lot of a look in. A lot of Ian Boddy's stuff. Really like Ian's and his collaborations. His collaborations with lots of other musicians are really wonderful too. So hopefully you'll be able to get hold of Ian for your.
Yeah, I interviewed Ian Boddy. He was very nice. Right. Yeah, very nice.
Yeah.
But what about non-electronic music? You like Genesis or Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd?
Yeah, Pink Floyd.
Blondie, all that.
Yeah, definitely Pink Floyd. Yeah, there's some other interesting stuff. There was something because my partner now is very much into like folk music, and we're in Devon here, which is quite a good place for folk music. And there was a band I came across a few years ago called Spiro, and they have a sort of interesting. It's almost like Philip Glass does folk music. It's a really interesting, repetitive, but folk instruments, and it's got that lovely magical repetition going on that hooks you in. But it's with, you know, mandolins and with guitars and so on. And that was really interesting, and harmoniums and squeeze boxes and stuff. That was
how big is your CD or vinyl collection at home? Is big? You buy a lot. You buy a lot of stuff. Or you download.
Weirdly, I've bought more vinyl recently, quite a lot more recently. But we're in the process of trying to store everything at the moment because we're trying to move house. So everything is in boxes, all stashed away. I guess my CD collections maybe of the order of a few hundred. It's not massive actually. And probably about 10 years ago, I decided to stop buying the physical CDs and just download. So my download collection is probably much larger, but it's well, it's not in Apple's cloud, but it's stored on my machines. But I think I just realized with the passing of vinyl, really, the artwork was so important that, you know, the size, the physical size of a vinyl is as much to do with the music as having the physical artifact. So I've started to buy more vinyl, and but I gave up buying CDs probably 10 years ago. But now, yeah, hopefully once we get moved, we'll have a place where I can have my record player set up and then I can put the vinyl out and buy more of it.
That's what I do. I buy a lot of stuff. For me, yeah. I need physical thing. I need to open it up and listen and sit in front of the turntable and then, you know, turn to the other side. I like, otherwise with, you know, files, if I don't like 10 seconds, next. That's kind of living. I don't want to live life like that anymore. It's too fast. I enjoy my work in the day, but then I want to slow down. And when you put a vinyl, you're forced to sit in front of the stuff.
That's really nice. Yeah, that's a really nice thought. I think the physical nature of it, the tactile nature of it, the weight of it, you know, it's lovely, isn't it? And we, you know, hopefully there'll be an Airsculpture one that you can put in your collection soon.
That's where people can buy your photography. You're selling photography as well, or?
I tend not to sell my photographs, although I have done. What I do is I teach people. So I teach people how to edit their pictures. So that's my primary business. So I help people to use tools like Lightroom and Photoshop. I also help people to build photographic websites and things like that. So online workshops, that sort of thing. So that's my role. And then individually, one-to-ones, I do help people with any kind of aspect of photography, and actually mostly technology as well. And I guess you're very familiar with this, helping people to work out how to do stuff on their computers is big business these days. And actually, yeah, it's been a surprise, but it's been a pleasant surprise that I can make a living from that, and not have to worry about killing myself trying to make products for other people.
And you mentioned that people can buy your music on Bandcamp as well.
Yeah, so you can find me on Bandcamp. So yeah, I can't remember what my profile is. If just to search for Adrian Beasly, you'll find me on Bandcamp. And then obviously Airsculpture's there. And John Christian has his own page as well. So you can find the three of us. And Pete hasn't yet, but I don't know if he will be. Hopefully he will do, because he has a recent release as well, which is really lovely to see Pete get something out there too. So he's got physical CD. Hopefully that will be coming through Bandcamp as well soon. So yeah, you can contact us through there, individually and as part of the band. Yeah, and if you want to come and do something photographically with me, then my business is called Adrian Beasly Imaging. But
definitely, I want to check it out, your website, and
yeah, great.
And I like photography. I'm not professional, but I like images. So
excellent.
That's where I like albums, because I can see the art behind, So
well, I think in the years that we've been traveling and meeting other musicians, it's always surprised me that so many musicians are usually very good photographers too.
Yeah, go back and hand. Music and photography and movies and art.
Yeah, it's all well connected. The visual arts and the music are a great connection between them.
Well, that was my last interview. Hopefully you will. I mean, the last question. Hopefully you guys can. When the pandemic be over, and you guys can tour, record your music, man. And
well, Claudia, if you want, you could get all three of us on a Zoom session together.
I would love to do that. That was my next question. Yeah, I would love to.
Of course, we would love to do that.
Yeah, next week. And as I mentioned before, when it's done, I will upload this interview to the radio station. I will do a special on you in a couple of weeks.
Great.
The music that I bought last night is playing right now on the radio.
Excellent.
And I will also send you a direct link of this video, so you can use it for your social media account, Facebook, whatever you have.
Oh, fantastic.
Yours to guess. So for me,
great.
My role is to get to know your music, have an interview with you and promote your music, your radio and in the radio, and so
that's fantastic.
Can listen to your stuff. So
lovely. Yeah. Oh well, that's really lovely. Thank you, Claudia. And
thank you very much. Have a great. What kind of football? What team is you prefer?
I'm not a football person.
No, you're not. Come on.
No, if anything, I used to play rugby when I was at school, but
rugby. I got you.
I did like playing rugby, but no, I never really got into football. Motorsports, maybe Formula One for a while, and I was quite into that. And I think it's technology. It's all technical. Those are the things that sort of attract me. But no, but not a footballer. How about yourself?
Yeah, I like it. So we call it soccer here in the United States, football in Latin America. Yeah, I like in the UK, Manchester City for
right.
Sure.
Okay.
Spain, Real Madrid. I mean Barcelona.
Yeah, of course.
Manchester is doing very well, so I'm very happy.
Yes. Oh, yeah, very good. And there's pretty popular over here.
Totally. Okay, thank you very much. Have a great weekend and stay healthy, man, and keep on producing good music. And
thank you.
To get the vaccine as soon as you can, man.
Yeah, lovely to talk to you, Claire.
Same here, man.
Okay.
Appreciate
all right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.